Hello and welcome to That Shooting Show. My name's Steve Anderson. I am your humble host. Want to thank Walther for being the title sponsor of this program and of AndersonShooting.com in general. My guest agrees with me that the Walther PDP-SF is the greatest production handgun ever made. Is that right, Parker?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
And what did you shoot before?
I actually saw it Glock for probably close to 8 or 9 years before that.
Okay, and you have that in common with Jay Beal. So did Jay Beal shot
Okay.
Glock.
I didn't
And
know that.
he came to me and he was very apprehensive about changing platforms. And I don't remember how Walther got on the radar. I don't know if they got on his radar or he got on their radar. But he contacted me and said, "What do I do?" I said, "See if you like the gun."
Yeah.
Right. So how did Walther get on your radar from Glock?
Scott Jedlinski with Modern Samurai Project. He ran it. We went to a couple of his classes, and my shooting partner, my buddy, started shooting it, and I kind of watched him because the reason I shot Glock for so many years was the reliability.
Hmm.
As long as you didn't tinker with it too much, it was going to eat whatever you put through it. And I liked that about it. And I kind of watched Caleb shoot it for a while, and it just didn't mess up, didn't have any issues with it, and the trigger was just phenomenal. So I finally broke down and bought the polymer version, the PDP, got it, and then Scott Jedlinski realized I was shooting it and just won my first state championship with that gun. And he said, "Look, let me put you in contact with them," and so it just kind of went from there.
That's fantastic. And what modifications or upgrades are on your primary competition gun?
None. None. I haven't done anything yet. I've Caleb's playing with a couple of guide rods, stuff like that. He's the first one to jump out there and start tinkering with stuff. And luckily, I have him to kind of try everything out, and then he'll let me know what works for it.
And what about grips? Using stock grips too?
Dot grips.
Okay, so I am also not much of a tinker, but I will tell you the lock grips are an absolute game changer for that gun.
Okay. Well, I
And
definitely, I'm up for trying different stuff. But like I said, I'm not a huge tinker, but yeah. So if you recommend it, I'll definitely give it a try.
so here's what I'll do. Because I'm now your sponsor, I will send you a set of lock grips. Um, and all you have to do is decide. I'll have to get with JBL to figure out which ones I got. The texture is so amazing because
Okay.
it's abrasive, but it feels kind of rubbery, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So it's aggressive without being painful. And yes, I know the stock grips are great. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with them. These are a massive game changer for that gun.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'd love to try them. I usually keep a little chalk on my grips. That's but the only
Yes,
thing I put on there.
I did
Uh,
too. And
yeah.
I probably still will, but you're as soon as you put these grips on the gun, you're going to be like, "Oh, this is what hanging onto the gun feels like." It's really astonishing.
Okay. Well, yeah. Like I said, I'm definitely up for trying it.
All right, and we are here to announce the fact that you are the very first Anderson Shooting IDPA ambassador. And I know you have no idea what that entails, so we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Um, I have shot exactly one IDPA match in my entire life. And I have shot exactly one stage with a PCC in my entire life. And that's because Jason Wood from Targets USA literally ordered me to shoot a stage with a P. I had no interest. Like,
Yeah.
just nothing against him. I'm just so for me, rifles are about fun. It's
Right.
rifles and shotguns for me are about fun. I don't want
Yep.
to compete. I don't even really want to run a timer. I just want to pull the trigger and have fun. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can see that.
Right. It's just fun. Give me a bolt action gun and teach me how to use it. But I'm not going to go to a match. You know what I mean?
I
And
get that.
and PCC is kind of the same way. Like they're fun, but as a pursuit, it's kind of like basket weaving. Yeah, it's cool, but I'm not going to devote my life to basket weaving. It's just what
Absolutely.
I want to do. But
Yeah.
I have perhaps two of my greatest accomplishments are putting two PCC shooters in the top five of the IDPA World Shoot. Two of them.
Oh wow. Okay.
Right. So the two parts of shooting that I know the least about, IDPA and PCC, are two of mental management's greatest accomplishments.
Yep. I can see that. I can
Right.
see. Yeah.
And IDPA is particularly suited for mental management. Of all the shooting sports that I've coached mental management in, IDPA is the easiest one in which to apply mental management. And you know that now, don't you?
Yep, absolutely.
Now, how has your so when I met you, you did mental management online how long ago?
That probably 5 or 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, okay, 5 or 6 weeks ago. And how many matches have you shot since then?
Uh, one match, one major match.
And
Yep,
did you
I
win
I did. I did. I won it.
it? Now, can you tell us, and this isn't supposed to be a commercial for mental management, it's actually a commercial for you, Parker Patrick, the man with two first names.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, but you're going to be such a legend, my friend. Now, uh, what in the shift in these 5 or 6 weeks? What shift have you seen in your shooting from applying mental management?
So, in that major match in particular, was shooting real well, and then had a couple of errors that were self inflicted, but I was able to move past those instead of lingering on it and having it mess up my next few stages like it usually does. Usually, something goes wrong, whether I mess up the gun or if I have a equipment failure, whatever, which is extremely rare. Usually, it's me. If something goes wrong, usually it's just me. But I'll linger on it or try to go too fast on the next couple of stages to make up for that error
Mhm.
instead of just realizing what happened, work the problem, figure out the solution, and then just get past it. And rerunning the stage through my head and then getting it correct after I've messed it up is a huge game changer for me.
Good. Yeah, that reload portion of the mental management process, ironically, it's the one that people forget to use when they're fresh out of the class because it's so new.
Yeah.
Um, and people that have been following me, the only thing that's really super new in the actual class is that mental management mental reshoot,
Okay.
and in which you get it right. Now, I have this theory, and it's a very strong hypothesis. I love using that word because it makes me sound more scientific. I think that once we get to the advanced level, I think that the only problem we're going to have outside of a random technical failure, right,
Mhm.
is firing the gun in the presence of a poor sight picture,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, and I see. Yeah, absolutely. It's just pulling. You decide that there's going to be a certain time that I'm going to pull the trigger instead of letting the sights decide when you pull the trigger.
That's correct. And waiting for that to happen is excruciating,
Yep.
right? The other team member that we just brought on, I can't wait for you to meet him because you guys have so much in common. Were you or are you military or law enforcement?
No. No.
Okay, neither one. Okay. Oh, you're in sales. Is that right?
That's right. Yep. I'm one of those
Okay.
salesmen.
You're in sales. That's right. Okay, good. Me too. Well, actually, everybody's in sales. But the class where I met Michael Lazinski, and the cool thing about Michael is he won't let me call him Mike because it's a negative imprint. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
That's interesting.
And right, that's how well this guy understands and believes in these principles. Okay. So we're at class, and it was a class I could drive to. So I had my guns, and I wanted to shoot a little bit because I don't shoot in classes. But I asked the guys, I said, hey, I've been drive fine a little bit. You guys mind if I shoot? And they said, do we mind? We'd love it. And I felt so guilty for loading my mags and taking the time. I felt like I was detracting from the class, but they really enjoyed watching me.
Yeah.
So we do this drill in class. I call it the Alpha Charlie Challenge. And the way it works is we set up a stage with shot up targets on the front, clean targets on the back, and your score is your raw time unless there's a mic or a delta. Okay, so it rewards what I call green shots. And when two shooters of similar skill, you can't afford to slow down, but
Right.
you also can't afford a micro a delta. Okay.
No.
So this teaches people to shoot green shots without slowing down. And I was feeling really good. The gun was feeling great in my hands. I hadn't put the lock grips on yet, but the weather was perfect. It was just the right temperature for a good grip, and
Mhm.
everything was going great. So I decided to race my new team member, Michael Lazinski. And I'll never forget, I settled in. The very final shot was steel, and I broke the shot right there. And it was a miss,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And he he just smiled ear to ear, and he goes, Did you not put the dot in the center?
Yeah.
But I didn't want to wait.
Yeah.
I could feel the clock ticking because he was like a 326 or something like that, and I was like a 324. But I had a mic, and I didn't make it up fast enough.
Yeah.
So the point is, the temptation to fire a gun in the presence of a poor sight picture is overwhelming.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And your sport punishes it more severely than USPSA does. That's why IDPA is so perfect for mental management. And that's why I'm so excited about our future, because I meet IDPA clients for the first time. And my first question is, how many points down are you? Oh, typically 6. And I say, okay, do you understand the scoring?
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing you can do to make up for being 6 points down.
No, no, you average 6 points, and it's just yeah, you're not going to be at the top. There's no other way about it.
Right. Now, because you and I are just getting to know each other, give my audience an introduction to the man with two names, Parker Patrick, IDPA, AndersonShooting.com ambassador.
Okay, so I started, grew up on the farm, shooting guns since I could tote them around. But I got into handguns specifically when my pastor asked me to start a church security team.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to do it right. So we started training locally when we ran out of local guys that could help us out. Then we started looking for, you know, better instructors. And then we found Jedlinski, and who has been a huge, huge help to us. And then I actually had taken his class once and almost got the black belt patch and his black belt patch. And once you've taken his course, you can actually shoot that. You can just show up to his class and shoot it if he lets you, which means he has to know that you've got a really good chance to do it.
Okay.
And so we drove down to Little Rock, which is about 3 hours from us, Little Rock, Arkansas, and we shot that evening. I think I missed it by, I don't know, one shot or something like that. So we were gonna stay and shoot it for the next evening because he had a two day class. Well, I was talking to my Benny and Caleb, who were my shooting buddies, and they went with me, and they actually both shot for it. And I said, "Look, what are we going to do in the morning?" So I started looking around for matches, and we had never shot IDPA before.
Hmm.
And so we found it, and they had actually just started a lot to allow appendix carry, which is how we all carry, for their matches. They had just that little law had just changed where you could do it. So I call up to the range, like, "Look, there's three of us down here. We have no clue what even IDP is about. We don't have any idea what it's about." So the guy, really nice older gentleman, his name's Ron, and I have a great place in him for my heart because I probably, if I'd have showed up and it had been some guy that wanted to penalize you for every little thing, or just make your day tough just because he can, I might would have never shot IDPA again.
Right.
But because he was super kind, he said, y'all shoot my squad. We'll run you through it." And I actually ended up winning that my first local match. I actually won the match. And I was like, okay, well, this is kind of cool. I enjoy this. So went that evening, and actually got Scott Jelinski's black belt patch, which is one of the proudest things that I have won in shooting, is that black belt patch, because I worked so hard to be able to get that. Uh, and then started shooting IDP a little bit, and ended up in 2023 at the end of the year, I had won a bunch of local matches, stuff like that, and I'd went to one big match in Texas, and I had I don't know, I don't know, around 10th or ninth or something like that, and I was like, okay, I did okay in that. Didn't win it, but I'm proud of that. So
Mhm.
I talked to my wife. I said, I think I want to make a real run and just see how good can I be before I top out. Before I'm just the guys are too good at the top level. So I took 2024 and shot six or seven majors, or no, six majors and nationals, and I ended up winning two of the majors. Took top five in several of them, and then took top five at nationals, beating the current world champion Kevin Harding, beating out JJ Rakaza, who I absolutely love because I grew up when I was a little fella. He was on Top Shot, and I loved that show. And so being able to beat somebody that I had watched for years, had great respect for, it really opened my eyes. Like, okay, I can be really, really good at this sport. And so I just kind of went from there, and luckily I've been able to meet some great people like yourself, and then Walther. The guys over at Tier One are helping me out with holsters and things like that. And here we are now.
That's great. Okay, so I hope I get these details right, but our mutual friend Chris Long,
Yes.
I had forgotten his name, but I actually helped him earn, I believe it was Jedlinski's badge. Am I getting that right? Or was it a different standard?
I'm not really sure.
Okay, so I'm gonna state this, and I think it was Chris Long from Walther. I'm pretty sure it was, and if I'm not, so I'm gonna get a text message in about 2 hours.
Yeah.
But he was in that same position. He really wanted this accomplishment. Okay, I think
Uh,
it was Jedlinski's top tier accomplishment. Okay,
yeah.
and so basically, I said you just need to be able to dry fire it 75% faster than you can live fire it. That's it. So any standard we want to meet, like the IDPA 5x5 classifier, that's so simple.
It's very easy.
Well, but the process is very easy, right? If
Yeah.
if we need a 20 second, I don't remember, I think it's in the 20-second range, zero down, all we have
Hmm.
to do is be able to dry fire it faster than that. That's it.
Yeah.
Because the mechanical elements of manipulating the handgun are pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
And all it takes is repetition of the skill at the desired level or above the desired level
Hmm.
till it becomes subconscious. And then we use the conscious mind to create a rule that says, hey, I shoot zeros, you know? And I was just talking to my buddy Chase. We're in Nashville to see AC/DC tonight.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, God's okay if we go to the AC show. I'm not gonna buy the battery powered devil horns because that's not cool. Uh,
Yeah.
but God gave rock and roll to you, so we're gonna go see AC/DC tonight. Now there is a thunderstorm predicted, so if I perish in a thunderstorm at the AC/DC show, you and Jay and Gaz are gonna figure out what the next step is.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, 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 oh! That reminds me, I'm having the most amazing vacation ever. Look at it.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. So with the screen hiding thing. So this is a semi hollow body electric guitar that Eddie Van Halen's son designed.
Oh, wow.
And
That's awesome.
yeah. And I traded one of my other guitars for it, and they have a purple one, and that's called Sunburst. And there was a purple one and a Sunburst one, and I couldn't decide. And they had given me way more money for my trade-in than I was expecting. They pleasantly surprised me with my trade-in, so I said, make me a deal for both of them.
Yeah.
So I couldn't decide, so I bought both. And that's just like you and Michael Lazinski. I can't wait for you to meet him. I couldn't decide, so I brought you both on. Okay.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah.
What I'm so excited about is I would presume, and maybe you tell me, the IDPA world probably doesn't know anything about Steve Anderson. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. It's probably not a whole lot, at least that I know of, because I don't think uh either either Caleb or Chris Long was the first one to tell me about you, and then I started listening to your podcast. And then with Walther, he invited us on for the class that you provided.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I hadn't heard your name in the IDPA circles before.
So you were part of the class that had Santiago's journey, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. So I don't think I have ever seen a case of mental management working so quickly than for Santiago.
Oh, that's wonderful.
There was another one that was very similar. I did a class, and I think it was some kind of defensive outlaw pistol match. It might have been USPSA. I'm not sure. But this guy, they're always engineers because engineers want to overcomplicate everything, and they're made of problems typically. And we're given the class, and this guy has a match the very next day. And I could tell he was skeptical.
Mhm.
And he said, Steve, you're asking me to specifically not think about everything that's important to have a good stage. I said, yep. But not really. I'm not asking you to not think about them. I'm asking you to think about something else.
Yeah.
Because if you're having a bad day and you have to go to work, you're in sales, you cannot let the problems of your day interfere with your sales presentation. You can't.
Oh yeah. No, it's so people, you sell yourself. The
Right.
products are important, but if people like you, that's the most important part of it.
Yeah, sales is relationships. That's all it is,
Mhm.
right? That's why so people that are opposed to salesmanship, that word has a negative connotation, but everybody's in sales. You know, if you want your wife to make your favorite dinner, you are going to influence her decisions by behaving in a certain way, right?
Right.
That's just sales. It's not, I don't think it's deceitful or anything else. You're just using your God-given gifts to make the likelihood that you want more likely. That's it, you
Yeah.
know. As long as
Yeah.
you don't do it deceitfully or dishonestly, it's just life, right?
Yeah.
But going back to mental management and IDPA. So this guy, I can't remember what sport it was. It doesn't really matter. So we this was part two of the class, and he had a match the very next day. And I said, just try it. What have you got to lose? It's a local match.
Hmm.
Just go get a subconscious stage plan, positive imprints, put the dot in the middle of the target. He goes, I don't believe that'll work. I said, well, what do you believe will work?
Yeah.
Like we've tried everything else. You know, we've literally tried. It's no different than when you surrender to God's will. We've tried everything else.
Yeah.
All right. We've
Hmm.
literally tried everything else. That's why we're here. And he did, and he reported back. And it was so cool. I was staying with Kita Bussy. We were helping each other recover from our health problems. And we just kind of helping each other out, just stay alive. And she was sitting on this class, and and I can't remember the guy's name. I want to say he was Chris, but it doesn't matter. She goes, how'd my favorite shooter do at his match? I can't wait to hear. And he comes on and he goes, I cannot believe how well that worked.
That's awesome. That's wonderful.
And the craziest part is when he was so skeptical, we had a masterclass shooter, a masterclass USPSA shooter, and this guy's an IDPA or whatever the sport was. He's a novice, right? He's at the very bottom.
Right.
And here we have a masterclass USPSA shooter and Steve Anderson telling him to please try this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you don't believe me, believe this guy that's in master class because he's telling you
Mhm.
it'll work.
Right.
So when we get a subconscious stage plan, and I have some IDPA specific questions for you here in a minute. When we get a subconscious stage plan with positive imprints, and what that means is as we are creating the stage plan, we're actively choosing to think, this is what I'm going to do, and I can do it. Okay. So at his level, he just needs to believe he can do it with a good run. At your level, you need to be able to do it in such a way that you win. Right.
Right.
Now, have you been able to set aside the win, or do you use the process to support the desire to win?
I go in there with the intention of winning, no matter what match it is, whether it's a local or nationals. I go in there with the intention of winning, and then, but I've tried to have every stage individually.
Good. Yeah. And this is so critical for people that are listening who may not know about this. It is great to want to win. Like Gaz in South Africa, he went
Mhm.
through a period where he thought, because he's very smart and he's also kind of an overdoer, just like me.
Mhm.
Gaz and I are both, if some is good, more is better, you know, and
Right.
more is not always better. And I'm learning that. Um, but he thought that mental management denies you wanting to win or thinking about winning. It does not.
No,
Okay.
I don't think it either.
It just instructs you to back it up with a process. So
Yeah.
say, okay, I'm Parker Patrick. I'm the man with two first names. I want to win this match. And that's cool. What am I going to do within my control to make that result more likely? That's where we have to get to,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And my buddy Luca Fuma from Zimbabwe, he just won his second national title recently.
Wow.
And he was in the bridesmaids position. And you've probably been there where you're second, you're third, you're a podium guy, but you've never won the whole thing. Do you remember those days?
Hmm. Yep. Had a few of those.
Now, when you're a bridesmaid, the temptation to overtry is unbelievable, correct?
Oh, absolutely. You're trying to. You think you're good. I'm good at this stage. This is a stage built for me. So now I have to do more to try to gain that extra little bit on there, and then it just
Right. And
doesn't work.
Luca reminded me of something. So I've been working on Luca for so long because Luca, he's a very smart guy, super smart. Sometimes we're too smart for our own good. We learn that in sales right away. Like your customer doesn't want a catalog of specs,
Yeah.
right? He wants to know that you are going to be there for him if he has a problem. That's all he cares about,
Hmm.
right? He doesn't
Yep.
care about the specs. What do you sell, by the way?
My wholesaler. Janitorial products, paper products, office supplies, a lot of farming stuff like that, whether it's cleaners, just a whole variety of stuff. We warehouse like 30,000 items.
And what's the name of the company?
It's not my company.
Okay.
Parker Wholesale.
Oh, so you are already in. You're
Yeah.
already in. That reminds you, I want you to evaluate this sales technique. When I lived in Atlanta, I sold dent repair door to used car dealers.
Okay.
Now, imagine selling to used car dealers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right. So here's what I did. And so I learned that every car dealer has a dent guy, and it's usually somebody's brother-in-law, right?
Yeah.
So you're not going to get him fired. And so that was my initial goal. That's not going to work. But I have 12 techs and an army of mobile dent repair services, right?
Yeah.
So I started taking them donuts. And I would say, hey, my name is Steve. I do not mind being your donut guy, but I'd rather be your dent guy. Do you have anything that needs to go out today? And they're like, no, get out of here. Okay, I'll see you next Tuesday. So I'd come
Yeah.
Tuesday with donuts and I'd say, hey, I'm your donut guy, but I'd rather be your dent guy. Is there anything that has to go out today? Yeah, we got a camera that has to go out today. Okay, I'll have a guy here in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's how I did it, by being the donut guy first and then being the dent guy. So back to IDPA and mental management. And I've only shot one IDPA match in my entire life. And that was because it was an indoor match. I went there. I waited 2 hours to fire 8 rounds. And then I waited another 2 hours to fire 12 rounds. It was two stages. They had to redo the stage, at the match.
Yeah.
And I was coming out of USPSA and Steel Challenge, and I was like, never again.
Yeah.
Never again.
Yeah. That will burn you quick going places like that.
Yeah, to fire 18 rounds in 2 hours, like what are we
Yeah.
doing here?
Uh,
It's not their fault. It's just something I didn't want to do again. Same with three gun, right? In three gun, I got there at 8, I left at 6, and it takes 20 minutes to shoot a stage. I was like, I don't know if this is for me. However, in IDPA, have you shot much USPSA?
uh, that's where I started, was in USPSA, but I would probably say I've shot less than 15 matches
Okay. So
total.
would you say that IDPA gives you less options in how to shoot the stage?
Yes, I would definitely say that.
Okay. And then therefore, would you say that it's a little easier and quicker to come up with your stage plan?
Yes, I would say, definitely.
Okay. So that takes away the biggest challenge in USPSA. The intermediate USPSA shooter thinks that stage plan is way more important than it is. Your average B class shooter thinks, oh, stage plan, stage plan. So they get to the stage and they will agonize over the analysis of a very simple decision. And what they don't know they're doing is they're actually creating negative imprints, right? So as they're evaluating the stage, the underlying thought of ability is, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if this is the right plan. I don't know if I'm going to remember it. And in IDPA, we don't have those problems, right? Would you agree?
For the most part, there are, certain stages to where there may be three different ways to run it, but for the most part, it's not as tedious on USPSA and stage planning.
Yeah, right. Now, what is the surprise target? I keep hearing about that. I think I understand it, but what's a surprise target?
Prize target is where there's not a fault line, to where when you shoot that, you can pretty much keep your feet moving as long as you don't break the 180 and keep moving downrange or cross, and you don't have to stop at a fault line.
And
Like on the
what I thought I knew about them is, are they exempt from tactical sequence?
Now, IDPA they have changed that rule several times in the past, but as of right now, I believe that usually for and a surprise target, usually there's only gonna be like one or two there,
Right.
and so they're usually not going to be changed up to where you have to worry about tactical priority.
Okay.
So there's not going to be like one at 5, one at 10, one at 15 that you're going to see at the same time for a surprise target.
Okay. So they are exempt from tactical priority most of the time.
Yes,
If you can see it, you can shoot it.
right.
Okay. Now, the other thing that I'm confused about is the last IDPA match I went to. Do you know Bora Angel in Texas? Have you met him?
I know of him. I don't know him personally.
That doesn't surprise me because his antics are legendary. Like
Yeah,
Bora is a guy that you're going to hear about, and if you meet him, you're never going to forget him. He's an amazing guy, but he's
yeah,
Turkish, and he it's so funny. He can be in your face screaming and yelling about a rule, and then 5 minutes later, you're best friends again. And most people can't do that.
right.
right?
Yeah.
Most people can't get into a shouting match about a rule and then act like it never happened, right?
Yeah, that's pretty rare.
Right. But once you know that about Bora, it's totally cool. You can argue all you want to, and
Yeah.
then go have lunch. It's amazing. But this one stage, they had all these fault lines, and the targets were really close. The targets were like 3 yards away, really close targets.
Yeah.
And everybody was going to the fault line, stopping and shooting it, as opposed to staying moving in between the
Uh,
fault lines. That's not illegal, right? I can shoot it from behind the fault line, right?
now, what do you mean? Like you can't progress forward and shoot those if there's a fault line.
Right.
It-
But I can shoot them behind the fault line, right? I can
yeah, absolutely.
before I get there, can't I?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I couldn't figure out. Like everybody, and I think the culture of the sport, I think it sucks them into the fault line because of the old cover rule, right? Because in the old days, you wouldn't be able to see it until until you got around the point of cover.
Yeah.
Now, were you shooting the sport when there were cover calls?
No, that was already gone when I started shooting.
You are so lucky because what would happen was the safety officer would just arbitrarily say that you weren't sufficiently behind cover.
See, yeah.
Like he,
And a lot of people got burnt on IDPA by shooting that. And like I said, I don't have any dealings with it at that time, so I don't have those experiences.
yeah, and that was the biggest complaint I would hear from the IDPA community, and
Yeah.
I think it did him a huge disservice because if I'm a new shooter and I'm on the fence and I'm talking to these guys and they're complaining about the rules, and these guys are over here having fun and spraying lead, well, of course I'm going to go over here. That's what I
Right.
did. And then when you combine it with my first experience, which was not awesome,
No.
um,
Yeah.
and then we can bring this. Let me just think what the other questions are. Okay, so the vest is going away, or the vest is here to stay. Which is it?
It's going away. You probably we're going to be at appendix carrying at 50% in probably less than 3 years,
Okay,
and then your other guys are whether it's like a untucked shirt or something like that is where it's headed because the fishing vest is just so unpractical. Hardly nobody wears a fishing vest, even hardly when they're fishing anymore. So I mean, it's a joke. I mean, it's a joke. And so I think now I do like the cover rule because I started in church security, so I do like that making people shoot from concealment.
okay.
I do like that,
And
but
you personally compete appendix right now. Is that
I
your
do, yes,
okay?
and I shoot USPSA from appendix.
Okay.
Wherever I go, I'm going to shoot appendix.
And so your shirt's always untucked at matches. You never tuck it in.
No,
Interesting. Okay, that's very cool. And what's your best first shot from concealment at close distance?
now you, what kind of target are we talking about here?
Human sized target, IDPA target, 3 yards from concealment.
I've got down into point in the high 50s. I don't.
Whoa! Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Now
That
that's 7 yards C zone.
that's even more impressive.
So now is it repeatable? No, but as it came out capable, yes.
Okay, so let's say bad breath distance, combat distance. That'd be in the 50s, right?
I think so. Yeah.
And would that be from a retention? Would that be a retention shot or would it be full extension?
Oh, full extension. Yeah, I'm not gonna. Like I said, I don't count it unless now I may not be seeing the red dot at 3 yards, but I'm gonna
Right.
have a gross sight picture.
Right. Well, so you got into this for church security,
Right.
and if you're at what they call bad breath distance, there's not a need for that.
Right, and that's true.
Now, if
I've
it's
never
50
actually tried
yards,
for speed at like 3 yards and then just pull the gun out and like shoot, at belly hip level. I've never tried that for speed.
well, so there's a technique that I learned at the SIG Academy, which is I don't know what you want to call it, but it's firing a defensive shot,
Hmm.
close range, big target,
Yeah,
no innocent bystanders, no hostages, nothing like that. It's before you get to full extension,
I got you.
and
Yeah,
you could save in your case, you're going to save between a hundredth and a tenth.
yeah,
Okay, but
yeah.
that wouldn't be a competition technique. Now, do you know who Dave Sevigny is? You might know him as Dave Savigny.
I'm not familiar with him. No.
Okay. He has won 250 major matches between 1999, 1999, I hope I get this right. 19, yeah, that's right. 1999 and 2025, 250, including state, national, world IDPA titles.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So you probably don't remember the Rob Latham years of
I know Rob. I know of Rob Latham. Yes, I'm familiar with him.
okay, so for roughly 10 years, if it was major scoring iron sights, Robbie was going to win.
Okay.
Okay. At that time, if it was minor scoring iron sights, Dave Seveny, and people know him as Dave Savigny, was going to win. But he and I are old friends, and we've recently reconnected. And he told me something on this last podcast we did. So Dave's a hockey player, and his mental game is outstanding, but we use different words.
Yeah.
He'll say things like "let it happen," where I'm like, "No, it's subconscious. We got to use the right word." He'll say "let it go." No, change what you're thinking about. People can't let it go. And he's like, "Whatever, man. I'm just using different words." Well, the words are important,
Yeah.
you know. And again, if you're trying to teach me Spanish and you tell me that the word for Spanish is no, and I decide I want it to be la cucaracha, I'm not learning Spanish,
Right.
and we can't have a conversation. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? It's just not possible. That's why I'm so picky on terminology. But he said there's a guy at the match that everybody's afraid of who is going to win. Let's just say Eric Graffel, Christian Seiler.
Gotcha.
Pick one, doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah.
What if you became that guy?
Hmm.
And I said, oh my goodness, did we just become best friends? Are we going to get bunk beds to make more space for activities? Because you're living proof, right?
Yeah.
People think that the guy that dominates the sport was born that way. Um, I don't believe that. You know,
Yeah.
the things that I am good at, teaching people. I don't like the term teaching, but helping people, I'm extremely
Hmm.
good at. If there's some teaching involved, that's cool too. Playing guitar and writing songs, I'm incredibly good at. Um, and shooting, I'm very good at. Okay. Those
Okay.
things were all very difficult for me, except helping others. That came very easily.
Gotcha.
So was I born that way? Did God make Steve Anderson to help people? Or is it the fact that literally every person in my family on both sides, going back 100 years, is a teacher?
Hmm. Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
does that mean teachers biologically produce teachers from a DNA standpoint? Or does that mean that people in environments where teaching is important become great teachers? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know two things. When I first picked up a gun, I was horrible. Okay. I also know that Eddie Van Halen's son struggled mightily to play the guitar. And if there was ever going to be a person for whom playing guitar was easy, I would expect it to be Eddie Van Halen's son.
Right.
But Eddie Van Halen was a terrible guitar teacher, the worst. Wolf would say, "Hey, Dad, how do I play this?" And Dad would go like that. And Wolfie's like, "Dad,
No clue what you
right,
just did.
right." And Eddie would just do it again.
Yeah.
And the point there is the great performers are not the great teachers, typically, right?
Yes. There's a lot of truth to that. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to shine a light on myself, but if somebody says Steve Anderson has never won an IDPA match, I'm going to say, well, let's talk about IDPA and PCC, where I put two shooters, Andrew Willingham and Steve Miles, in the top five at the PCC World Shoot with mental management. Because the simplicity of it in IDPA is amazing. If you're not shooting zeros, you're not winning that match.
Yeah.
Now, what is your budget? So, Kevin Harding, is that right in Texas? Did I get his
Yeah.
name?
Hmm.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Um, he budgets 1.5 down per stage for the entire match. Do you have a budget like that?
Similar. Yeah, I've actually been changing that probably since the last 6 months. It used to be if I was two down, then I was okay. But I've been watching these other guys that I'm competing against, and I'm about where he is. W- I really would like to be one, but 1.5 is acceptable with my speed.
Okay. Now, what if I'm a new IDPA shooter and I think that my goal for the entire match should be down zero? Is that a good goal, do you think?
No.
I don't think so either. Right, because what's going to happen to that guy?
He's going to go too slow, and he's checking every single shot before he moves on.
Exactly. And that gets into green shots. Okay. So my my nicotine pouch here is a great example of the oh by the I'm still not smoking and my weight loss continues. So I'm doing really good. Um so let's say, can you see the inner ring of that?
Yes.
Okay. That's my green shot in IDPA.
Okay.
Meaning if I call a shot outside of the inner ring, that's fifty
Mhm.
50 down one. Okay. But if I call a shot in the center ring, that's 100%. It's 95% down zero. That's what I want is green shots. Okay.
Right.
Because my margin of error is about this big.
Yeah.
So if I get into the flange, let's call that a flange, and I shoot a flanger, which is a guitar term. Only the guitar nerds know that. You know that jet engine sound where the guy's playing guitar and it goes.
Hmm.
That's a flanger. Really cool. So
Huh.
if I shoot a flanger over here, or a flanger, I guess we could call it, that's a
Yeah.
50 down one.
Yeah.
Okay. But if I call it in the center and fire a green shot, and the other thing that I want to say is, and I'd love to hear your take on this. Did you go through a time where you believed that zeros had to be slow?
Probably. Yeah. I don't have a specific memory of that, but I definitely remember going to matches and telling myself, okay, I've got to slow down
Yeah.
to get my hits more accurate. And so, yeah, to say, yeah, there was.
Now, are you free at this point from the conscious control of speed and competition?
I don't know if I'm 100% free. I'm getting better though.
Yeah.
I'm getting better at it. And so, but 100%, because I'm still working on getting faster in my practice. Like I'm
Of course.
still working on that. So but I've only done this at one major match, since I've been talking to you. So I don't think I can say that after just one major match yet.
So here's the thing: the conscious control of speed will always make your speed incorrect. So if you get to a stage and say, I got to speed up, that's going to be an error. And similarly, and this is the other half people forget. Slowing down is just as big of an error,
Oh yeah, yeah.
right? For two reasons. Anytime we're, and this is why we have to use the right terms. Anytime we consciously control our speed, we are by definition not getting subconscious skill. And
Mhm.
this is why we use the right terms, because if I'm not getting my subconscious skill, I'm not getting my training, right?
Yeah.
And the other one is negative imprint steering training. Are you free from that one yet?
Native impurance. Yeah, I think I'm doing really well on those. Big and that proof was that last match that I went to. I've worked real hard on that. Like now, 100%. You know, we'll see, I guess. But
Let's restrict it to training.
okay.
Okay. When you're practicing dry fire or live fire, if imprints are your thoughts of ability, meaning I can or I cannot do this, or I can or cannot do this well,
Uh,
okay, so let's call those yabbits. Okay.
okay.
Hey, Parker, that was a great run. Yeah, but. Hey, Parker, that was a great first shot. Yeah, but. Okay. Those yabbits are yabbitaging your shooting.
Okay. All right. And I agree with that. And I don't think I've been doing that much anymore. I'm
Good,
saying, no, I'm not saying 100%, but yeah.
good.
But instead of taking the negative from it, take the positive and then just going, okay, is there anything I can maybe do better at, or where, do something like that, just working on the solutions to better stages.
Right. And if we restrict it to training, okay, at your level, the only problem you're ever going to have is judging speed and accuracy at the same time in training. Okay.
Mhm.
So for you to be the best IDPA shooter in the world, do you need to get faster or do you need to get more accurate?
I think more accurate, honestly. Now I'd love to be faster, and I'm gonna continue working on that. But I think the last maybe three major matches I've shot, my raw time was the fastest, except for PCCs, which we don't count those.
That's
But
not your sport.
yeah,
That's a
yeah. So I'm not shooting against those guys. But yeah, my raw time was the fastest. So yeah, I probably will. I mean, I have ability to go faster, so I feel I know it's there. but accuracy is probably definitely the one that I need to work on a little extra.
Okay, so that's mental, and you don't need to work on it. You need to decide to do it.
Okay.
I had a conversation with Luca, the guy that just won his second national title in Zimbabwe. I think it's a national title. I don't know how countries work outside of America, but let's call it a national title or the equivalent. Okay,
Yeah.
and he and I have been working on this for 3 years. Okay,
Okay.
and he says to me, Steve, you told me something. So I just saw him again in South Africa. He did the class with me. He did the class with Kita Bussy, which is amazing, by the way. We're gonna get you fixed up with a video review from her on me.
I actually have already done it. Yeah. I actually, as soon as I got through with your online class, I went and did one, and she's told me some things that have already been a huge help.
Good.
Yep. Yep.
That's great. And by the way, she is not an IDPA world champion.
Yeah.
But
She's
she's such
phenomenal.
an amazing
She's
coach, and
phenomenal.
she's got this movement stuff figured out. So you IDPA shooters, listen to this. For $100, if you send Kita Bussy your three best videos, she will find the movement that you're missing out on, and she will find you raw time that you're missing out on. And you get $200 in Hunter's HD Gold cash. So you actually make $100 when you
Yep.
let the world's best movement specialist improve you. Like, this is amazing. Now, let me ask you this. Looking at USPSA versus IDPA, is movement more important in either one of those sports, or is it the same?
Well, USPSA time is such a huge factor. So, but I don't really know if it's more because I mean you can't shoot slow in either sport and win.
Hmm.
It's not gonna matter. If you shoot slow in either sport, doesn't matter how accurate, you're not gonna win either one of them.
But movement specifically, okay?
Movement specifically,
In
maybe
in your
USPSA
experience,
a
is
little
footwork
bit.
more important in USPSA or IDPA or
I
the
tell you
same?
what, I actually I will say yes. And I think in USPSA it is more important because you shoot more on the move.
I would say so. And the stages are longer, I think, for the most
Yeah.
part.
Yeah,
And
for some of them.
the way the scoring works, reducing the amount of time spent not shooting is easier to do in USPSA because of the most common problems. But I'll have to talk to her about that. Next time I talk to her, I'll ask her about movement in IDPA versus USPSA.
Yeah.
Um, what she's going to say is, if you're moving your body and not shooting the gun, you're scoring 0 points.
Yeah.
Like you're just accumulating raw time. Now, I would imagine, does IDPA have super squads at major matches?
Actually, they don't.
They
They do
don't.
not. Yeah. It's just you just squat up with who you want to and what's left.
Interesting.
Yep.
Now, okay, so let's say, but you do keep an eye on the times of the other, let's call them super squatters, the other contenders, right?
I try to at major matches, I try to at least squad myself with somebody that I know whose raw time is gonna be fast. I'm not too worried about their points. But
Okay.
because that way I can kind of keep an eye on their raw time and my raw time and just kind of have it to compare.
Okay, so if you and Kevin Harding shoot the same stage,
Yeah.
the raw time is going to be pretty close, I would assume.
Yeah, probably within I mean, a second to a half second, same difference on each stage.
Okay, so is it between you and him, is it always going to come down to points?
Yes, yeah, now I would say so. Yeah.
So if you guys shoot 20 stages, the winner between you and him is going to be the guy who's the least number of points down, right?
Right.
Okay. So what I can do personally is I can teach IDPA shooters how to shoot zeros without slowing down. And that's what I really want to be known for in IDPA, is the guy that says, hey, zeros don't have to be slow, but you just got to shoot them.
Yeah.
And that's why mental management is so brilliant for IDPA, because you really have one job. So in USPSA, what's confusing is the number of Charlies you're allowed to have. And the
Yeah.
bottom line is you need to have less Charlies than people that are as fast as you. That's all there is to it. So if I'm in A class, the times are going to be similar within a second or half a second. So it's
Yeah.
points. If I'm in master class, times will be similar. Points. If I'm in the super squad, and I know for a fact, because I've been on them and I've seen them and I know a lot about them. On the super squad in USPSA, they talk about points down. They don't talk about time. Charlies and deltas.
Okay. Yeah.
And you do the same. If you and Kevin Harding were to compare notes, you wouldn't be talking about raw time And there's going to be outliers, right? Like out of 20
Yeah.
stitches, you're going to clip him by 2 seconds. He's going to clip you by 2 seconds. He'll have malfunctions. You won't because you shoot a Walther. What does he shoot, by the way? I don't.
He actually shoots a Walther, but he shoots a Q5.
Oh, no kidding.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay, so that means he will have more malfunctions than you. Is that those guns are not quite as reliable as the PDPSF.
Yeah.
Um, I talked to Chris, and I believe the PDP is the upgraded Q5, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes, that's the way I looked at it, at least. And I tell you, I was actually very upset. Last year, Arkansas State Championship, I beat him, but it was so tight, neck and neck, and I was pretty sure I was going to beat him. But on the very last stage of the match, or maybe this is the next to last, his Q5 had a major issue. And when I mean major, like it cost him probably 20 seconds,
Hmm.
which at that point there was no coming back from him. And I was so upset because I felt like that win was stole from me over him because of equipment error and not me just beating him.
Yeah. Now let's talk about this. What is your understanding of self-image versus ego? Do you understand the difference?
Well, to me, ego is to where you don't think about your deficiencies or just gloss over your deficiencies.
Hmm. Okay.
Self image is to where you say, "Yeah, I'm really good at IDPA shooting. I can be the best in the world," and then I can look at USPSA shooting. It's like, "Yeah, I can be really good, and I have a chance to be a grandmaster." But if I go shoot again on the super squad, I'm probably not going to do as well as those guys because I know that's not where my strengths are at this moment.
Right. So though I agree with both of those statements. Um, if I had a high ego, I would go to an IDPA match and expect to win tomorrow. That's
Mhm.
just not going to happen, right?
Yeah,
Um, but just to make that a little bit simpler and to help people understand it, you are talking more aggressively about winning and beating people than anybody I've ever spoken to.
really.
Really. Most people are so polite about it, but you're very blunt about your desire to beat people. And is that ego, in your opinion?
I don't think so because for
It's
so
not.
long, yeah, I don't think so.
No.
I don't believe it's ego.
No, because you would beat Kevin Harding straight up, and then you'd help him change his tire and carry his groceries, right?
Oh yeah, I mean Kevin's a great guy. I call him. We text all the time.
Right.
Just and because and I've he was the first guy that the first big shooter in IDPA that after a big match he came into me. He said, "You just keep it up." He said, "Please don't stop shooting because you're going to be great."
That's
And he
amazing.
came to me and said that, and
Yeah.
so that was such a huge praise from me
Right.
to receive that from him. So
Right. That's just like you just so people just don't know that you could say something to somebody at a match that could change their entire life.
yeah,
Right. My
hmm
buddy Vern Walker said something to me that changed the entire sport. He said to me, I had just started doing Steel Challenge. Do you know what a Yaki slide holster is?
I don't.
Okay, so a Yaki slide, just imagine a leather belt that has a second leather belt where the gun would go. Okay,
Okay,
a little leather, yeah, just a second piece of leather. And you
yeah,
pick whatever gun you want and jam it in there, and it works.
wow, okay,
And so I was shooting Steel Challenge with a Beretta 92 out of a Yaki slide holster, right? And I was doing pretty well. And he
yeah,
said to me, your job, he said, you're very good, but your draw is too slow. You need to work on your draw. You should
yeah,
do dry fire. And my question to him changed the world of shooting. What's dry fire?
wow,
Think about the impact that conversation has had on this sport.
yeah.
And similar to you, if he had not invited me to a Steel Challenge match, we wouldn't be sitting here talking today.
Right. Oh, it's such the small details that change your path. Which now, in my opinion, it's all God has a plan for all of us.
I
And but it's the small details you look back and like, wow, if that hadn't happened, if that guy hadn't came and talked to me, or if I hadn't went that day and did that little small thing, look where that led to.
Right. And people that are foolish enough to deny the existence of God will say the universe brought this to me. And I will say, I'm so sorry to inform you that you cannot opt out of God's will any more than you can opt out of mental management. It's just it's always there, you
Yeah.
know. All right. So tack reload. Long live the tack reload, or tack reload is dead.
I think that's something that needs to be taken out. Now what I would prefer or like for them to do, I do like to where it makes you reload every stage. And I like the low round count because instead of like in USPSA, I don't know the maximum you can shoot on a stage, but instead of shooting, say 30 rounds or whatever, the most you have to shoot usually on IDPA stage 18.
Oh,
What I,
okay.
what I would prefer them to do is take that out, but then uh give the match directors, say, instead of loading to 10 every time, say now every stage you just choose them to load a different round count in their mags, and it's still
Mm,
going to force that mag change.
interesting. Okay, yeah, because USPSA never starts with a prescribed number of rounds. It's always division capacity.
Yeah.
Mm. And
So
I believe the maximum round count for a level one match is 32 rounds. Now every Halloween they'll have hoser matches where they have 50 round stages, which are so much fun.
wow.
Yeah, so much fun. They'll call it the Halloween Hose Fest or something like that. But do you personally do tack reloads or are you more of a mag dumper?
I'm either gonna mag dump or do a standing reload. I don't do it. I don't wear the fishing vest, and then my wife says I look better in skinnier jeans, so I wear tighter jeans. So I don't have big pants, so it just the tack reload doesn't work for me.
So you're telling me that you specifically abandoned the tack reload to make your butt look better in skinny jeans for your wife? Is that what you're telling me, Parker?
I'm just telling you that I dress the way my wife prefers.
That's really smart. Yeah.
Yep.
I have been on a clothes buying spree. I've lost 30 pounds now, and clothes shopping is so much fun now.
I'm gonna tell you, dropping 30 pounds and quitting smoking at the same time. I would love to know the percentage of people that have actually done that because I don't think I've never heard of anybody doing it.
I know human beings, those are two things human beings can't do is quit smoking. I'm going to turn a light on. Hang on. So check
Yeah.
this out. There's a tornado warning for the AC/DC concert. So
Oh,
I,
jeez.
but I'm going. I'm
Yeah.
going. Hang on one second. Talk amongst yourselves. Tell them more about yourself.
Oh Lord. I tell you what, Steve probably does not give himself enough accolades. What he's been able to do for me is just takeaways. Learn how to be okay with telling yourself you're really, really good.
Yeah.
And as a Southern guy, I like to call myself a Southern gentleman. I'm not a redneck. So
Yep.
I call myself a Southern gentleman. You always you don't talk yourself up. You kind of stay in the background, talk other people up. But him being up saying it's okay to say that you're going to be the best in the world and that you have those capabilities. That's been huge.
You have to. You literally have to. Anybody that is in the middle of the pack, locally, regionally, or nationally, they are there because of self-image. Okay. And what that means is in training, they're reminding themselves of the things that they can't do,
Yep.
didn't do, haven't done, didn't do well, can't do. And those thoughts of ability, I call them imprints. Okay.
Uh,
You're imprinting that you are a shooter who can't, won't, didn't.
yeah.
Okay. Those thoughts go with you in your ammunition box, and those thoughts go into your magazines and they come out the end of your gun.
I got you.
And all I'm doing is saying, hey, think about the things you did do well, the things you can do well. And it doesn't mean complacency. The people that are skeptical of this think that I'm saying that you don't have to practice and that if you can't shoot one-handed, then you just stay that way. I'm not saying that. I
Yep.
never said anything of the sort. But if I go train one-handed and I say shank the trigger, it was slow, couldn't do it, didn't do it, that's the guy that goes to the match.
Yeah.
And literally all I have to do is say, hey, my one-handed shooting is getting better. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I have to do. And then that's
Yep.
the guy that goes to the match. Now,
Absolutely.
what is the percentage of one-handed shooting in IDPA?
It's not a whole lot. You may maybe like one stage per match, and that's kind of maybe the locals and majors too. Yeah.
Okay. Now, inside of a class or division, could that stage decide the match?
Oh, definitely. Whoa, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So in for example, if you go shoot against Kevin and there's two one-handed stages and he's dramatically better than you, that's going to decide that match, I would think.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. And so in USPSA, it's kind of tricky because it can be 0 or 20% of the match.
Wow.
And you don't know until a month before the match. Now, how soon would you know? Like for an IDPA World Shoot, how soon would you know if there was one-handed shooting in it?
I've only shot one nationals, and I think we got the match book. I want to say 2 weeks. 2 weeks before the yeah, 2 weeks before the match. I think is when we got the match book.
Okay.
But now your state stuff, it's usually a week or less.
Okay. And would you just assume that Nationals is going to have one-handed shooting or a regional match? Would you just assume it would?
Yeah, I just wait to see how they're going to do it because usually there's going to be something like that in there.
Sure, but you would assume, hey, this match is going to have some one-handed shooting in it.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. And are you a great one-handed shooter?
Not as good as I want to be.
Let's try that again. Are you a great one-handed shooter? Starts with a Y and ends with an S.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
You
yes.
see, that was so easy. So easy. So ask me if I'm a great guitar player.
Are you a great guitar
Yes.
player? Yeah.
Yes. Ask me if I'm a great mental coach.
Are you a great mental coach?
Yes. It's so easy. But if you say, hey, Steve, could you be a better guitar player? I would also say yes. But the thing that shooters do, you're a master class, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If you have a bad stage, do they put you in sharpshooter?
No.
Shooters do that to themselves. What they do is they have a bad practice, he had one bad shot, and they reduce themselves to incompetence. I made the same mistake coming out of my divorce. Okay. I was living in cheap hotel rooms. I was drinking too much,
Mm.
and I had reduced myself to a horrible human being. And then one day, my buddy Matt Adams, he said to me, hey, what's your name? Steve Anderson. And he goes, how many Steve Anderson things have you done today? And I said, what do you mean? And then I realized the things I was doing was becoming Steve Anderson instead of the man I needed to be being Steve Anderson,
That- That's really good.
right?
Hmm.
So in life, when we make a mistake, we can't reduce ourselves to the level of a homeless alcoholic. But for a short time, I was living like a homeless alcoholic. I was becoming, right?
Yeah,
So then I just reminded myself who I am, what I'm capable of, and then I found pay value. You know, when you face your own mortality, I highly recommend that, by the way. If we could go to a like a themed restaurant where you find out you're going to die and then you
yeah,
survive, it
yeah.
changes your whole outlook on life, right?
Hmm.
It's brought me closer to God. It's made me a lot more aware of who people are and what they might be going through, you
Yeah.
know? And in the shooting world, man, I'm just on fire. So we are officially over 1 hour, so we need to wrap this up. I want to tell you how grateful I am to God for putting you in my path and vice versa.
Yes, sir.
We are going to do so many amazing things, and I might add IDPA to my list of comeback matches. Um, and I can't remember where you live specifically. You're going to tell me again.
Bastrop, Louisiana. Right next to the Arkansas Mississippi line, where the Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi all meet. I'm about 30 minutes from that. I'm right there at it.
That's like the trifecta of redneck, right?
I know, it's horrible, but yeah, yeah.
Every accent. So my mother used to tell me, because we were from Texas, and she'd say, when you drive through Louisiana, make sure you roll up your window so you don't catch stupid.
Well, yeah, yeah. It's we have a lot of it down here. That's for sure.
So I would love to come hang out with you. You ever rent at your house, right?
I do.
And
Yep,
we can do a
man.
class there, right? Okay,
Absolutely.
so if I survive the ACDC tornado, I'll get with you later this week about setting up that IDPA class.
Yeah.
Um, we'll make it very affordable,
Okay.
and it's just going, as my mother would say, we'll have the best time. And when you learn to shoot IDPA with Steve Anderson, you will have the best time, according to my mother and the timer. So, so excited about our future. I don't know exactly what's in it right now, the future, but it's going to be awesome. I can promise you that.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Is there so do you know the catchy catchphrase for the podcast?
I've heard it, not, but I can't recall it.
Get to work.
Get to work.
But we could do a new one for IDPA. Do you prefer get to work or down zero makes you a hero?
Get to work.
Okay, get to yeah, because we
Yeah,
want to shoot 100% down zero. I like that. All
get to
right, so
work.
till we meet again on the range, on the Zoom, in or out of a fishing vest, depending on how invested we are in our tack reloads. Be like me and Parker. Don't shoot flangers, right? Shoot in the middle.
Mhm. That's right.
And most importantly, all the glory goes to God and say it with me,
Get
get
to
to work.
work.
And then I make mumbling small talk while I turn off the recording because I always forget to do that. Okay, get to work.